a bear actually got into the swimming pool of the house where the crew were, and we filmed this bear.
Oh,
and
it's amazing.
Hot tub section of the thing, sort of relaxed until one of the producers chased him off. But it was we have the footage.
I hope that's a special feature or something I'm making of. That'd be fantastic. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch or Pass, and today I'm talking to Jesse V. Johnson, the director of Hell Hath No Fury, which is coming to theaters on November 5th, 2021, and digital on November 9th, 2021. We're going to talk to him in just a second, but first, let's check out the trailer, and while you're watching, if you can like and subscribe to this channel, that would be fantastic. Helps me out a lot. Thank you.
You want to tell us where that gold is? Maybe we can all go home.
I'm doing my best to remember. I promise!
If I were you, I'd keep real still, Marie.
When the fighting is over, freedom.
Then we're going to tar and feather that girl. She begged us to help her. Promised the major buried treasure.
We don't find that gold by sundown. This will not end nicely for you.
Don't you see? She's using you.
One clever trickster, Marie. Maybe. We put down these guns. We all get a little piece of that gold. We got a deal?
No more deals.
Hi, David. How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. I'm sorry I'm late. The other one went a little long.
No worries at all. I'm just excited to talk to you.
And you, likewise.
So this is Jesse V. Johnson, the director of Hell Hath No Fury, which is coming to theaters on November 5th, 2021, and to digital on November 9th, 2021. It's a World War II film, but it's a very different World War II film than I think most of us expected. I was expecting like, oh, it'll be an action film, and there's going to be big explosions. And there is that, but there's a lot more suspense and kind of intrigue as well. So the first thing, it's based on a true story. Had you heard of Marie's plight, her predicament before this, or did this just kind of come to you in the script?
This was absolutely the first I'd heard of it. It's not a true story. It's a group of true stories, and in the best of traditions, it's how the truth should have been. It is more of a dedication to these unsung women who did things that were above and beyond the call of duty and were basically have been unheralded. A few have been. We're starting to sort of learn a little bit more about it now, but it's such a tricky thing when you're a double agent, an agent, and it's much easier to sort of think of our heroes as olive drab wearing males with a M1 Garand in one hand and a cigar in their mouth, because that's has fitted the requirement for the last 70 years. But the truth is, these women did things that were absolutely unbelievably terrifying and honorable and beyond the call of duty, and did it. And they had as much a part in winning, the Second World War as the guys with the guns. And in many cases went far beyond, in personal sacrifice, And so it was, my grandmother was in the land army from 41 to 43, and for the later part of her life she would give talks to schools and universities and groups and things like that, and it was just very interesting to me because I felt it was something that was not appreciated or properly thought about.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things that, like you said, it's very important, but it's not as well known. I mean, I think you hear of these stories about double agents and kind of the risk, but it's tough to kind of put that into context when most of the movies we get are the big kind of action-oriented missions and things like that. And this does give a perspective on how difficult her situation was and also how dangerous it was.
Exactly. Yeah. It was a tremendously appealing script to me for a lot of reasons. The first was that it gave me a chance to go a little different, go off my regular course, which has been sort of more adolescent-based sort of action movies made for a younger audience, made or at least a more pithy, cerebral sort of investment. And I really, really enjoyed the idea of going somewhere a little risky for me, which was a female lead, who absolutely goes for broke in this one. It's a fearless performance, and for me it was sort of a risky thing for me to do. Once you get into it, once you see what Nina does, Nina Bergman, the gal that plays Marie in the picture, it's not risky at all. It's very obvious. But the first, proceeding with this film initially was something that was, is this the right thing to do? I'm not sure. It's a huge sort of endeavor to, I'm putting everything I have, all of the money I have is going on, this particular character and whether she can sell it or not, bruised, beaten, broken, shot up, tortured, semi-crucified, and then validated, in the final act. And it's like, let's see what we can do. And it was really, really an exciting adventure to go on and terrifying to cast, because I knew we wanted an actress who was going to shave her head and was going to have to go through all this and could speak 2 languages. And it was just as we were starting COVID. So it was very, very difficult. No one could come in from abroad. They had to be based in the US at the time to make it work. And it was nerve-wracking. And Nina, I've worked with before, and she was someone that just kept coming back as the right choice,
Yeah, she definitely killed. I'm really trying to see how you pitch this to her. Hey, do you want to go and shave your head, spend the movie in like a nightgown in a graveyard? How does that sound? And you're right. She killed it.
We went out and we had a lot of people come back for it, and a lot of them were saying, "Well, can we do the wig thing?" And I'm like, "No, we're shooting chronological order. The whole idea of this is a performance piece. We want to see that. We want to see that. It's an ugly haircut as well. It's not cut neatly. It's she's sheared by a group of guys. It's the most horrible, dehumanizing experience imaginable. I watched immense amounts of footage of these reparations taking place in France. And I mean, basically these were, for most of the people doing the reparation, doing the shearing and the abusing and the slapping and the catcalling were people who had something to hide. So it was a vindictive viciousness that came out because they wanted, at that point in the war, after 4 years of collaborating or doing what mischievous things they were doing, they wanted to show with that act how innocent they were. And so it was horrendous. As the US soldiers came in, that they would say it was amazing to see a human go from hugging you and kissing you to turning to these women and spitting in their face, literally in the same breath, because they were so eager to show whose side they were on out of fear. And for me, that painted an interesting portrait of the human id, the human character, and how weak and how vulnerable we truly are, when it comes to our own survival. And so I wanted that on one side, and then her heroism, her conviction, her sense of justice to be on the other side of this id. And when you have that going on in your movie, you've got, the recipe for making something really exciting, I thought.
Yeah, and I do agree with you that was a striking scene, and I feel like, given just kind of some of the stories you hear about these reparations, like that actually wasn't like the more intense. You could have gone to a much darker place if you really wanted to. I think that the film portrays what it was, how bad it was, but then like just considering some of the things,
they were stomped, they were murdered, they were hung. I mean, it was the head shaving and getting the lipstick swastika was the minimal. The interesting thing was we shot that sequence with the lipstick swastika based on a written first-hand account. And then when I was pulling together stock footage for the title sequence, I found stock footage after we shot the sequence.
Oh, wow.
And we found the stock footage of the girls getting lipstick. I don't know if you recall it from the title sequence, but we found that actual footage, and it matched identically what we had shot based upon written evidence, which was really one of those strange, almost creepy moments with this movie, which has been sort of blessed from the get-go with this amazing kind of fortune. And not all films, you don't have good luck on all movies. I did a picture called Debt Collectors, which was the sequel to my Debt Collector movie, where every single day, whatever could go wrong went wrong. Traumatic experience of my career. Yeah. And then you come to a picture like Hell Hath No Fury, where there was something strange from the very get-go with production that just ruled in our favor, and it was uncanny, and I'm hoping it continues, and that can be felt by the viewer when they watch the movie. I don't know, maybe I'm getting into the mumbo jumbo area, but it was really really a very, very interesting film to make.
Yeah, no, that's kind of amazing that it was almost picture perfect, right? A testament to kind of your research and just kind of the general tone that the cast was trying to get in that scene. That it's representative of what it actually was like.
Thank you very much, David. It was an immense amount of research on this one, more than any of us done before, and exciting because we shot in almost chronological order. We had to bubble because of COVID, so the cast and crew stayed at the location, which was very, very remote. Had no internet, no cell phone, so we were almost the equivalent of one of those 1930s or 40s movies that packed up into tents and went out to the desert to make a movie, and then would return with this piece of art. And you rarely get that opportunity nowadays. You got kids on the Instagram, doing posing. The cast are off somewhere in the trailer, doing their, having their own drama. That's, on this one, everyone was in the moment, on set, in the moment. We shot almost chronologically, meaning, from the beginning through to the end, which did something very, very interesting to the performances. They were building, and scars and scratches that the cast in the movie, and everyone got. I mean, it was a very inhospitable location, very hot. All the dust and dirt and sweat is for real. But Nina was burnt, scarred. I mean, it was, and no, not on purpose, of course. Yeah. I take great pride in keeping my cast and crew safe. But boy, oh boy, it was an interesting shoot. It was really, really rather incredible.
That's also, it's just really, it's a really great way to shoot this. But when you have an experience like this, a kind of harrowing, kind of grinding experience, shooting it chronologically is perfect, because then, like the characters grow, the characters get hurt, and all that kind of naturally comes on screen. So
it's interesting, but also making a period film was an incredible challenge for me. And everyone goes, "Oh, I've seen tons of World War II movies. It doesn't mean anything. It's great." But I don't care about that. I'm making my film, and so the research that went into this was very, I mean, I had a lot of specialists around, but I did a lot of my research. I'm extraordinarily fascinated by that era anyway. A lot of these props come from my personal collection that I had anyway, prior to the film. But you have a scene, for example, okay, they're having a date. They're going to go have a bite to eat, so a sandwich, and maybe they have some sandwiches and candy and a drink. But you can't do that in a period film because there was no bread. There was nothing to spread on the bread. They didn't have butter at this point. That would have been a huge commodity. Even the German general would not have access to certain things that there were no candies whatsoever in France, especially not southern France, where this is at the time. So there wouldn't be, so you suddenly find yourself even a default position. What are they drinking here? Well, they wouldn't be drinking this, and they can't drink out of that kind of glass because that didn't become available till 1960. So it's a really, really fascinating thing to do. And I absolutely love that, working with the production designer. And even Nina would do her research. Well, this was not the underwear that you would wear at the time. She wouldn't have this on, and it was a blast. And we were very, very, very rigid with this one. I didn't want anything to upset because, okay. There's a lot of World War II movies out there at the moment, a lot of cheap ones, and they are awful. That we watched a few of them, and it's like, oh my God, it was like torturous. And we didn't want our film to be like that. We wanted to research it, wanted it properly, we wanted to shoot in anamorphic with a process, a color process that matched 1960s, 1950s movies that were being made. Research into weaponry, into the firearms, the ammunition that was being used, the explosives that was being used, through the food, through the cars that were being driven. We wanted to be absolutely perfect to create that feeling of watching a film you couldn't quite put a budget number on, and so that was our challenge making this as well, and really, really fun to do.
It's interesting also that you kind of, I don't know, maybe this is different, but it feels like maybe this film you had that ability to kind of control everything because it was such a weird situation where, like you said, you kind of packed up and went to this remote location to film, so you kind of had full control over the set, and people weren't like leaving and coming back and bringing things onto the set, so you had to have period accurate stuff that you provided and kind of from your personal collection or your personal research. Yeah, no, it was really quite a unique thing, It makes me want to make my next movie in a bubble as well, if I could become that kind of a director that was powerful enough to say, no, you're not, none of it. You can see why someone like Christopher Nolan doesn't allow cell phones on set. Mm-hmm. It totally destroys everything. And when you have actors, especially in this one, where there's a lot of emotional acrobatics going on,
they get a call from a girlfriend or something complaining about something, or they get some drama they're suddenly dealing with on their cell phone, or a bill for something they weren't expecting, and suddenly they're lost. They're knocked out of that wonderful little rhythm, that groove that they were in. And the audience is very smart. The audience just looks into the eyes. One of my biggest things with my DP, any of the DP cinematographers I've worked with will tell you, I'm always trying to get into the eyes of the actor as close to over the shoulder as possible, so that the audience feels this unique participation in what's going on. Consequently, if the actor is knocked out of that groove, I think you can read that. You can read it even on a subconscious level. People say, oh, those special effects were good, or that fight sequence was great. What they really mean was they felt that the actors were actually engaged in that moment, and they were nervous and they were scared and they were excited, because that's our litmus test. That's our way of knowing how involved we are in a scene. And making this movie, making Hell Hath No Fury, allowed me to put the actors into this moment like no other, because there was no distraction out there. They were living these scenes. I don't use a lot of CG either. The blanks and the explosions, these are all very, very safely done. I have the best people in the world, doing, handling them safely, but still the smell and the noise and the pyrotechnic aspect of the action is quite visceral. It gets you involved in it, and in the scene it's very easy to lose yourself in that moment. I always try and encourage that, and we were lucky on this one because of the circumstances, because of COVID, because of bubbling, because of the way we shot this and the kind of movie it is. I really hope that a lot of that conveys when the audience watches it. I know when I watch it, I feel I'm there and in the moment again, so hopefully it does.
Yeah, no, the action does feel very intense, and I'm glad, like you mentioned, the blanks are safe, although I kind of can't not mention the recent news of Alec Baldwin, so there is definitely some risk, but you're right, it does kind of put them in a visceral type of setting, and I loved seeing the effects, especially the gunplay. It did feel very realistic. It's not like, when you have people who use CG on their gunplay and then it kind of looks just a little off. Like it looked pretty accurate in terms, as far as I could tell, in terms of what was happening.
Yeah, no, those were all World War II weapons on this one as well. We didn't have money to rent modern ones. These were either out of my personal armory or my very good friend Mike Tristano's armory, and this stuff. All of the tanks, the motorcycles, the airplane, the B-25 was obviously the exteriors were visual effect, but the interior of the plane was a B-25 from a museum in Corona. I mean, it was truly an amazing experience. The uniforms, everything, even the small props, the cigarette lighters, the cigarettes that we used, everything was as genuine as we possibly could to try and create the scenario for the actors. And it doesn't cost that much more. It just takes a little bit more energy on your part as a filmmaker, but it allows the actors that sort of chance to not, the less make-believe they have to do, and the more they can live that part, for me, the more exciting it becomes viewing it later. And I want to keep my excitement up. I want to feel like I'm going. The moments I look for, David, are when I'm watching the monitor and I forget to shout cut because I'm so involved with what's going on. I'm wondering what's going to happen next, And
Yeah.
and when that happens, I know I'm onto something quite fun, And it doesn't happen an awful lot, but when it does happen, you've just got that taste of, and I get as wrapped up in it as I'd like to think as the viewer who's watching that scene. I make movies myself. I have a very blue collar eye. I left school at 15. My tastes, I feel, are similar to, in many ways, what the average person is interested in seeing. And I think that's the strength to my pictures, which have done very well. When, it's my instinct, and I make my movies from my own personal gut. There's what's going to make money here. What's what are the masses going to like? You can't think that way, and it doesn't work that way. The only way to do it, and the directors that I love and whose work I love, you make the movie for yourself and you get excited. And there were a couple of moments on Hell Hath No Fury, as I say, where I totally forgot to shout cut. I'm stuck into the monitor, and I'm aware of the AD tapping me on the shoulder saying, yes, cut. You have to say cut at this point. And the actors keep going, and slowly one of them will turn to look at me.
I bet there was some interesting additional footage from that as well, right? If they're fully in the characters.
I think a lot of the time I let that stuff into the movie because it felt even more real. Because anyway, Yes, you're right. There's probably a few takes where people are looking at towards the director and what the fuck's going on.
Speaking of prop accuracy, I imagine you probably went out and got real gold bars. Maybe you melted down some of your, wedding jewelry. What were the gold bars made of? I mean, they looked. I've never seen a gold bar, but they looked like what I would expect a gold bar to look like. So,
the gold in this movie is a homage to a Bond film called Goldfinger.
all right.
And the bars are based on gold bullion that was taken out of a crashed Lancaster bomber in a lake in Switzerland,
Oh, wow.
and stamped with the Waffen Amt of the Third Reich. And I felt that was the coolest gold bar that I've ever seen. It's the one that Sean Connery drops on the golf field at Auric Goldfinger's feet in Goldfinger. And I think that's the only time you see it, or maybe at M's office when the Bank of England guy gives it to him. And I always felt that was the most interesting gold bar I've ever seen on film, because it represented so much history in that gold bar. It's not a gold bar mined from the earth somewhere. It's a gold bar made from the fillings and the watches and the necklaces and the menorah of an entire group of people. Now, obviously, our one wasn't. It was a fake one. I had a prop master make up. But as much as anything, I've always been fascinated by that. Gold isn't gold when it's representative of a people's suffering in that way. It becomes something else altogether. And that was profound for me when I saw Goldfinger as and so when we needed gold bars in this movie that had to represent all of that awfulness, that vicious, death and lust for power and genocide, I felt that was the best one to use. So I borrowed from
but again, period accurate, right? Like that's an accurate representation.
Yeah. But if you look at it, I even had them put the bumps and knocks into it. It couldn't be a beautiful one. It had to look like that one. There had a defect to it. If it was too beautiful, I felt that would. I'm getting a little bit. This is what I am about all my props. But if it was too beautiful and too clean, it wouldn't represent the malignant sort of truthful nature of what that gold bar represented. So even the imperfections in it, the knocks on it, and then of course the Waffen eagle, which symbolizes so much. The German eagle grasping of the swastika imprinted on its side. For me, the gold bar was a very, very important prop in the movie. And it's not just gold. The other film about gold that I adore is The Treasure of Sierra Madre. And if you remember that film, there's never gold in that. It was sand. It was gold dust, pay dirt. And that's the whole joke at the end. The robbers find it and they think it's just sand. They empty it out in the sandstorm, going, "Where's the gold? Where's the gold?" And so for me, it's better that it doesn't look too desirable. You wouldn't want the gold from Ave Maria, I don't think, because it's, as an audience now, we're completely in the know about what that gold represents. We know what it is. It's got that stamp on it. That's not good gold. You can't. That's awful stuff. Or at least I hope that's how people feel.
I think by the end of the movie that's the conclusion that everyone can draw.
Yeah. Good. For me, it was important to make a film where the hero of the film wasn't based around a desire for personal greed. I loathe that. I think that's a pitiful way to make your hero. All they're interested in is personal greed. There's something so much more beautiful to someone doing and risking their life for a higher cause that isn't personal advancement or money or power. It's so boring to me now, and it's the most boring, or even revenge, to be honest. I don't really like revenge movies because the truth is most people are not driven by revenge. Maybe for a week or two they might be, but then they get bored of it and they realize they want to get on with their own life. It's not a realistic human endeavor. Whereas grace, a state of profound justice, because you have no other life beyond trying to make this justice, was something that I felt was clean. It was a nice motivation, and it appealed to me for this movie. And I think Marie, bless her, is not about money or personal advancement, any of those things. She wants nothing other than to take this motivation and hide it and put it away and give it back to who it belongs to in the only way she knows how, which is just to hide it, And I think that's one of the cleanest motivations I've had in any of my movies. And I love it,
There you go. So I think you're gonna have more female leads and more bubble directs. So we talked earlier, and I got some more information from the other cast. So I wanted to kind of follow up on some of those things I learned as well, if that's okay with you.
Let's do it, baby.
All right. So the first thing, I heard that this was filmed in Santa Clarita, and I grew up in Santa Clarita, so I was kind of shocked about that, and just want to know more about how you found where you filmed it and where did you film it?
Well, we filmed at a very, very remote location. It was out of the range of cell and internet, and winding up way, way beyond Agua Dulce, right borderline with Acton.
Okay.
It's a location that's not very well known. It's not been used too often. I liked the idea of shooting there because when we were there, we could bubble. It was right in the midst of pandemic, so obviously no crew and cast left. They all stayed at the location. We had housing for the cast. We had housing for the crew. No guests, no visitors, none of that. And we shot in almost chronological order. So, it worked beautifully for me. We also had a second unit in Belarus, in Minsk, and a second unit in the Auban, which is south of France, where the film is set. So there was an awful lot going on this beyond the Santa Clarita unit.
Okay, excellent. Because I was curious. I was like, Santa Clarita, that's I don't associate it with French and culture, but hey, I guess with movie magic, anything can happen, right?
There's absolutely nothing that is French or cultural or culturally French about that area. We created completely there, and it was a very, very deep dive with production designers working. Ryan Karcher, who works for me, doing an extraordinarily good job of transforming where we were into Auban, south of France, which has bamboo, which has palm trees, which has the same dusty colored soil that that particular part of California has,
Agreed. And I guess to be fair to my hometown, there was a lot that is actually filmed there, a lot of cowboys and westerns, just because that's kind of the general look of that place. So that's why I was kind of shocked that this was filmed there. So that's good to know.
A river, a very, very a mountain stream that's been there since has been there since eternity. And so for a small section going through Vasquez rocks and through these huge boulders, you have a beautiful green area. And that's where we shot, and it was amazing. It was beautiful. There's snakes and bears and, mountain lions. And, we were dealing with a lot of interesting animals and everything, plants that stung, it was quite a fun, it was quite a bear actually got into the swimming pool of the house where the crew would, and we filmed this bear.
Oh, that's amazing.
Hot tub section of the thing, sort of relaxed until one of the producers chased him off, but it was, we have the footage.
I hope that's a special feature or something I'm making of. That'd be fantastic.
It was quite funny, although he chased it speaking, we think it's because he spoke Russian and he was screaming at it in Russian. The reason was that it ran away.
Just a multicultural crew, it seems like.
It really was.
And speaking of languages, I was talking to Daniel, and he mentioned that when he got the script, it was in English, and he translated his lines into German and kind of tweaked that. So that is, I didn't realize that all of this work went in when you were making the film, that you had people.
Immense amount of work went into the script. The script arrived with me. It actually had comic books with it, comic book sections, which were wonderful, very, very helpful with letting me know what was wanted of it. I initially translated it from French using Google Docs. I saw what it had and I loved it, and I showed it to 2 or 3 people, and they said, "What on earth are you talking about? It's the worst thing we've ever read. We can't read anything." So then I took it and translated it from Google Docs into English. And then I gave it to my writing partners, and they looked at, we see what you're talking about now. Yes. And then they got involved, Catherine McEwen, that is. And then we started to develop this thing. But an enormous amount of development went into the script, into the shooting of this movie, into the research behind it. I love doing historical pieces, period pieces. You don't want to leave any stone unturned. Anything that you take for granted. He jumps on the bike and gets away. To start one of these bikes takes 3 or 4 processes. So you can't jump on a bike and pull away like you can in a modern film. To have a picnic, I'm not sure if we mentioned this, you have to have the right bread. There was no butter. There was no candy. You would have sugared plums. Even from a picnic, every element, every cliche. You had to look into it in detail to make sure that it would have happened in 1941 or 44 in occupied France, if that was something that could have happened. And that's exciting. That's fun stuff. And, you know, we read through it. We had cast readings where the cast sat around a table and we read and we read and we read and developed the backstory to these characters, Louis, Tim, and Luke. Sorry. It was extensive amounts of research as to why these guys were how they had turned out, what had they been through with that, you know, with the battling up through Sicily and through Salerno and through Italy, taking a town, losing, retreating, and then having to take the same area that taken 3 times, seeing their friends turned into mincemeat, you know, and how they were burned out. So it wasn't just those. So it explained the strange kind of good, bad, are they, you know, who are they, what's going on here, aspect of their characters. So it's really fun. I love doing the research that's associated with it.
Yeah, you mentioned the butter thing in an earlier interview, and I thought that was fascinating as well. Like that level of detail is so tough to, I guess, get to arrive at, but then also it really does translate on the screen.
My grandparents, who I grew up with, you know, came up through the Second World War in England, and there was rationing, you know, so they talk about it all the time. You know, there's a reason they used to say, finish everything on your plate, don't leave anything, you know, because they grew up in a time when it was precious. Food was precious, and you had so many stamps per week, per month of what you could get, or, you know, a trade on the black market, and so I was sort of aware of that. It wasn't completely unknown to me, but then translating it into how it would have been in wartime France, you know, was the trick.
Definitely. And so now we have limited time, so I'd like to switch. I call it the lightning round. They're just lightweight questions about the film, kind of see how your experiences map to things on the film that occurred in the film. You can feel free not to answer any of them. I won't be offended at all, but I try to keep them very answerable.
Right.
First question, I'm assuming that you're going to say yes. Have you ever fired a World War II weapon?
Yes.
Excellent. So have you ever shaved your head?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. For a movie, for fun, for
movies, I played a skinhead on, you know, a stunt skinhead on a film, and Dominiquie actually was on it as well. Funny enough, a few of us were on it as stuntmen. We had shaved heads. I had a shaved head on a horror film called Feral, which came out just recently. I stunt coordinated on it, but then threw myself in at one point as the monster, and he had to have a shaved head. I've had shaved heads quite a few times on films, and, you know, oftentimes military haircut. You know, that's the thing for movies. Yeah. But yeah, you know, played white supremacists and prisoners and things like that. As a stuntman, you often play the repugnant, unpleasant characters, you know.
Which is so different, because that's not your personality at all. But yeah, I guess that makes sense. They just need someone to fill that role and look the part. So.
Yeah, I mean, the last person you want playing those parts is someone who's actually one of those people. When you stunts, the guy's got to get beaten up by an actor. You know, you've got to be, you know, unconsciously aware of that actor's safety and making sure they're not in any kind of jeopardy. So, you know, the idea is you look as menacing as you possibly can be.
Perfect. So one of the characters is nicknamed Little Badger in this film. Do you have a nickname that your friends call you, or any sort of nickname that you have growing up?
Jess or Jessie. That's about it. That's
right. And going back to the Little Badger, what animal would you say that you're like?
Well, animal, I've always thought of myself as a fox, and I like that. I just need to be able to survive and keep going, and when others around me have thrown in the towel or are no longer interested, I seem to be the one that just finds his way into making another movie or paying next month's rent, or being able to just keep ahead of the game. And I think I'm proud of being a fox.
Yeah, I mean, they call it a clever fox for a reason, right?
Yeah. In England, they're in London. They eat out of trash cans, and they're there all the time.
They're surviving, right? That's they're getting by.
We were filming, you know, weird times. So you're leaving the hotel at 4 a.m, getting back at midnight, and we'd see the foxes all around London, and they're little scallywags. They're hopping fences and eating out of someone's trash can and slipping in somewhere else through a cat flap and eating someone's food and slipping out again. They're amazing little animals, and yeah. So anyway.
Way rather be infested with foxes than rats or anything else. So
yeah, I don't think.
So in this film, Marie has to kind of go undercover as part of, you know, her mission or her resistance. Have you ever had to go undercover for anything, like go to a movie premiere, try not to make a scene or something else?
No, I think I'm so unrecognizable and undercover as it is. I think there's no further need to change that. I've been on sets where, you know, I've had full makeup on. We've had full, you know, on Thor, I had a full prosthetic bodysuit with the mask, contact lenses, fake teeth. With the Ice Monsters, I did the fight with Jamie Alexander's character, and she beat me up. And so I've done quite a few films where I've had full prosthetic outfits, so no one knows quite who you are. Those characters had prosthetic muscles and abs and huge muscly arms, and so it was quite fun wandering around for a little bit, thinking people thinking that you were a lot more muscular than you actually were, and then the skin came off at the end of the night, and I'm my usual self.
That's a great way to go undercover, though, right? That's a fun way to like just be for a day. That's a fun person to be for a day.
Thing to be in prosthetic for 17, 18 hours. You know, they did some that was supposed to be easier, which was a mask that went on with the eye holes in the mouth, but it was attached to the neck. And when you're doing movies, you find yourself sleeping an awful lot. And I fell asleep one time, and somehow the mask moved. I woke up, I couldn't breathe properly, and I couldn't see anything. I've got the full mask on, and it's stuck on my neck. And I was, for that brief moment, you know, when you wake up after a very, very early start, because sometimes the makeup started at 2 or 3 in the morning. You know.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm woken up at 2 in the afternoon in the green room. I'm absolutely unaware of where I am, and you bump into a wall and fall over, and and then eventually you manage to realize, shit, I know where I am, and you twist the eyes back around, and it's like, good, everything's good.
Well, and you can't just like rip it off because it's like a part of the movie.
4 hours, 5 hours putting you into it. The AD looks in and says, "Everything okay?" And there we heard some commotion. You're like, yeah, all fine, good. It's business as usual.
Do you have any gold on you?
Do I have any gold? No, I do not have any gold on me.
All right.
Sorry. I have the gold bar props in my little prop area still.
That is an awesome prop to have.
Yeah, they're not real gold though. But no, I'm not a gold person. I've worked in a lot of countries where gold is a backstandard, where people keep the bar of gold hidden away just in case, you know, something happens and they have to run. You know, I've seen that, but I'm not nearly that organized or planned out.
Well, that's as long as you don't need a backstop, that's perfectly fine. What is the most valuable thing that you have lost and then found later? This movie has some gold bars that everyone's looking for. What is the most valuable thing that you've lost?
I think for a brief period there, I lost my interest in making movies. I was shooting the schedule. I was the director who producers like to work with, because I would do it for a certain amount of time in a certain schedule and make the film and walk away. And they were saying, "Good job, Jesse." The films were not very good. I fell out of love with movies. And that was around about 2008. The entire industry fell apart because of the stock market crash. I had 2 films that were about to go. I wasn't really enjoying where I was. The scripts are not really very good. They were paychecks that needed to be made and films that needed to be made. The casts were not casts that I'd chosen. I'd fallen out of love with it. And I went and I realized, oh shit, I owe money. I've got to go back to doing stunts. And I called my dear friend Garrett Warren. I called my family, and back to back, I did Thor with Kenneth Branagh, The Master with P.T. Anderson, and Lincoln with Steven Spielberg, where I got to work, or not work, but I got to be in very close vicinity to those 3 directors doing what it was that I had initially got into movies to do. They were making beautiful films. They were caring. That was not about the schedule. It didn't matter at all about the budget. It was what is going to make this shot, this movie, this moment as special and as powerful as it could be. And I watched Kenneth Branagh directing us as Ice Monsters. And it's like, oh my God. And he had a little notebook as he's watching the actors, and he's taking notes on Natalie, on Stellan Skarsgård, on Chris's performance. And he'd run in and he'd tell them, you know, what they could change. And I was watching going, oh my God, they're going to go nuts with him, continually giving them all this information. But the opposite happened. They embraced it. They loved it. It was someone collaborating with them at a metaphysical level. That he wasn't interested in, at least to me, in anything other than the performance. And it shows, because he took a film that was essentially an odd script that was very, very strange, but he made it compelling because of the performance that those actors gave as those characters. And then working with P.T. Anderson, watching the way that he created this environment on this call sheet, it said do not, or we were, do not address Joaquin as Joaquin, address him as Freddie, the character. And he's in character in between takes. He sat on a little 3-legged stool facing the corner of the set, with smoking these clove cigarettes as they moved the cameras. There was no discussion, no dialogue. And as the camera was set and the actors were ready to go, they pulled him back in. My brief to stuntmen was, he's going to hit you, he's going to kick you, he's going to bite you. If this is a problem, completely respect it. You don't need to come down. But just so you know, you cannot hit him back. You cannot smack him back. He's in the moment. He's a method actor. If you're cool with this, come on down. So the stunt guys we had in, all broken nose, big fellas, ex-fighters, and they love it. Stuntmen don't mind it once in a while, as long as they're prepared for it ahead of time. You put a pad in, you know what's going on. And it was that much of a deep. And then, of course, Spielberg is Spielberg. We set up for 3 weeks shooting all of these vignettes. He was looking at the vignettes personally and giving us his notes on those for the Battle of Lincoln Ferry. And then when we did it, we shot it in 1 day. And
that's amazing.
Faster than any TV show I've ever been on. And the beauty and the clarity and the sheer cinematic genius is going on there to be able to do that so efficiently. 1 take, move on, 1 take, move on, 1 take, move on. But brilliant stuff, because everyone is pushing themselves to the very, very limit of their talent and expertise and abilities to impress that, knowing you've only got 1 take to do it, maybe 2, and it's like, it was like an enormous creative light bulb going off, and I fell back in love, passionate love, even more so than before, with the art of wanting to make movies. Out of that came Savage Dog, and then very, very quickly the run of pictures with Atkins and into this. And I haven't fallen out of it. I don't think I will fall out of it, because there's more to it than what it had become for me. So for me, losing that interest and then finding it again, so luckily over a period of 1.5 years of absolute financial strife, but then at the time hating life, I felt I was having to take a step back to become an assistant stuntman again. But in retrospect, I realized it was the greatest gift ever given to me, ever. And it was profound in its effect on my work and me as a person.
That is an awesome answer. I think I'm going to make that the final question. I have one more. I'll cut it earlier, but that is a fantastic answer. I love the perspective that you got and kind of the way that you're able to reinvigorate your career and your passion for the film. So thank you so much for your time. And the film is Hell Hath No Fury. It comes out November 5th, 2021 in theaters and on digital November 9th, 2021. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That was Jesse V. Johnson, the director of Hell Hath No Fury, which is coming to theaters on November 5th, 2021 and digital on November 9th, 2021. It's a World War II story that has a lot of suspense and an interesting kind of mysterious plot. If you liked this interview, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. And also check out the rest of my content. I've got other interviews, reviews, unboxing videos, and also weekly recommendations. Thank you.